We saw the appalling images from Liverpool, the victory parade, which turned to carnage. You demanded on your social media post that the British people should be told who's behind the Liverpool attack, claiming that the system protects perpetrators over citizens. How important do you think it is that the police were quick to announce that a 53-year-old white British man had been arrested? It was an incident not being treated as terrorism. How important was that compared to what happened with Southport?
You remember with Southport, they also said that it was an incident not linked to terrorism to start with. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And this is the
and
concern when it rings in the ears, doesn't it? We're
yeah,
reminded very, very quickly about that sort of stuff. But they're obviously trying to avoid the riots again by saying it's a white
yeah.
British man who's a local.
But they didn't say that it was a white 53-year-old man who was arrested for driving through the crowds. They said a white 53-year-old man had been arrested. And forgive me if I'm a bit cynical, but I want words of one syllable which are completely clear to be understood. You know, we had deflection from the Prime Minister with Axel Ruda claiming he was a Welshman. And by no account was Axel Ruda Welsh, not in the colloquial sense in which we use that term. He was a second generation Rwandan. He may hold a British passport, but he was not Welsh in that colloquial sense. He's not a man that you would think of standing outside in his field with his sheep. You know, he was, as I say, a second generation Rwandan, and now we discover had been reported to the police a number of times for his inclination for violence. And actually, at the time that the deflections were being given to us by the police and by the Prime Minister, they already knew that he was in possession of Al Qaeda workbooks and ricin, and the guy was a complete terrorist, frankly. And so I want to see how this unfolds. I don't believe that. Well, it's hard to believe. It's hard to believe that a 53-year-old white man would get in a car and drive it through a crowd in Liverpool. I just find that hard to believe.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right. And again, the truth will unfurl. There's all sorts of posts on social media, whether how on earth he got down to that street, which was closed off anyway. So what would you like the government to do then?
I want an unequivocal statement about what they know, which is, you know, uh, who drove the car? Is the white man they've arrested, the white 53-year-old man as they describe him, is he the one who drove the car? Um, and, you know, what were his motives? What are their theories about it? And it's not sufficient for them to hide behind, oh, well, now a police investigation is taking place. We can't say anything. That's not sufficient. We need to know. We, the people, don't trust the government and the authorities anymore because they've misled us in the past. And so we want words of one syllable that are utterly clear.
And you're absolutely right. That's I always say that trust comes in on foot and leaves on horseback, and trust in the media, trust in the police, trust in government is at an all-time low. But at the same time, justice needs to be done. Everybody's entitled to be presumed innocent until proven guilty. How do you balance that?
Well, that's fine, but nothing about the identity of Axel Rudu Cabana, the disclosure about his identity and some of the things of which he was in possession, or indeed the ferocity of his crimes would have prejudiced that trial. I don't accept that. These were simply facts. The girls were found, one of them stabbed 125 times, and an attempt to remove her head. Another one, I think, 80 odd times, and the third one, a similar number. And this was the second generation Rwandan. I'm going by that example. I'm using that as my exemplar, if you like, because there was clear deception by the authorities over it. And all these things that we now know about Axel Rudakabana, if we had known then, would not have prejudiced the case. They're just statements of fact. Statements of fact don't prejudice a case. Um, the number of times a child is stabbed is a fact. The identity and his ethnicity is a fact. And these were hidden from the people, and we knew something was not right. And again, here, I suspect something's not right because the language used to describe the arrest of this individual is not clear. It is ambiguous.